All right, so we're diving into Blink Twice, this new thriller everyone's going crazy for, with Zoe Kravitz directing and Channing Tatum starring. And we're looking at IMDb, some viewer reviews, trying to figure out if it lives up to all the hype. You with me?
Definitely. That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Is it actually worth your time? And we've got a real mixed bag of info to sift through here.
No kidding. Like, IMDb gives us the basic facts, but then we've got these three reviews, and it's like they watched three totally different films.
See, I love that. Keeps things interesting. But yeah, before we spiral into the subjective stuff, those hard facts are a good place to start. IMDb tells us it premiered August 23rd, 2024.
Oof, talk about a tough time to release a movie. Competing with those late summer blockbusters and the early fall festival buzz.
No joke. Yet here it is, holding its own with a 6.5 out of 10 star rating, which, isn't bad at all.
Yeah.
But even more interesting, it's currently sitting at number 25 in terms of popularity on the entire site. And that's saying something.
That is impressive, especially for something so new. All right, so for those who haven't been glued to every trailer and tweet, give us the rundown. What's the basic premise that's got everyone so intrigued?
Picture this. You're Frida, a cocktail waitress just trying to make it through the day, when suddenly, bam, you're whisked off to a private island, all expenses paid, by none other than Channing Tatum, playing, you guessed it, a tech billionaire. Intrigue, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sun, sand, secrets. It sounds like a classic thriller setup to me, with a generous helping of potential danger. But anyway, let's see what our first viewer thought about how it all played out. And spoiler alert, they did not hold back.
Not even a little bit. This one was definitely on the critical side. Said the movie started off way too slow, with a ton of partying scenes that didn't really add anything to the story.
Okay, yeah, I could see how that would be a letdown. Like, you're ready for the thrills, the suspense, and you're stuck watching people sip cocktails by a pool. Come on.
Tell me about it. But here's where it gets interesting. Our second review. They actually praised the pacing, called it tight, suspenseful. Like they really dug how Kravitz used that hour and 42 minutes.
Well, there you go. One person's boring is another's edge of your seat. It really makes you wonder if the pacing issues our first viewer had maybe colored their perception of the ending. Like, if it felt rushed because they crammed too much into too little time.
Oh, totally possible. And speaking of things feeling a little rushed, that brings us to our third review, which dives headfirst into the film's themes. And, well, according to this viewer, it was trying to do a little too much.
Oh, really? This is the review where they go full film critic, right? Lay it on me. What kind of themes are we talking? All right, give me the rundown. What themes are we working with?
So this review called out toxic masculinity, trauma, even touched on things like white privilege, cancel culture. It's like they threw a whole sociology textbook at the script.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Especially in a thriller setting, it's not exactly your typical rom-com fare.
And that's where this viewer felt like things went a little sideways. They appreciated the ambition, like trying to tackle these really complex issues. But by trying to do everything, it ended up doing, well, almost nothing well.
Almost like they spread themselves too thin. Kind of like trying to juggle too many balls at once. Something's got to drop.
That's a great way to put it. And it's interesting because this is where they started comparing it to other recent films, like Glass Onion, The Menu, Don't Worry, Darling. Those kinds of movies that also use thriller elements, but with the side of social commentary.
Okay, so it sounds like Blink Twice is wading into a pretty crowded pool, thematically speaking. But hold on, didn't our second review actually praise the subject matter?
They did. They were really into it, especially for a director making her debut, which, let's not forget, this is Zoe Kravitz's first time in the director's chair.
Right, so first-time director, potentially biting off more than she can chew, thematically. But at least one viewer dug it. What specifically did they like about it?
They were really impressed with how Kravitz handled such heavy stuff. They said the writing was particularly sharp. Remember how they called out the dialogue? They felt like it actually gave the characters some depth, even with all the other stuff going on.
Okay, so we've got contrasting opinions on the plot, the pacing. Some people are into the whole social commentary angle, others not so much. But one thing seems pretty consistent across the board. Everyone agrees that visually, it's a stunner. And let's be real, that cast alone is box office gold. Naomi Ackie, Aaliyah Shawkat, Christian Slater. That's some serious acting firepower on one screen.
It really is, and I think that speaks to something we were talking about earlier. Even if the plot has its weaknesses, the overall experience of watching Blink Twice seems to be what's drawing people in. Those striking visuals, the way the dialogue is written, those moments of pure tension, it all adds up to something that's staying with viewers.
So, like they say, sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination, right? In this case, The journey includes some A-list talent, a director with a really unique vision, and enough thematic threads to spark some interesting conversations after the credits roll. Speaking of interesting details, did you see that bit of trivia on the IMDb page? Apparently there's actually a factual error in the film. Something about snake venom.
Oh, yeah, those IMDb users don't miss a trick. I looked into it, and without spoiling anything for our listeners, there's this whole scene involving liquor infused with snake venom. And the type of snake they show in the movie, well, it wouldn't actually produce venom that would work for that.
Whoa, really? That's a pretty big oversight, especially for a thriller that seems to be so focused on, well, perception and playing with what's real and what's not.
It does make you wonder how they missed that, doesn't it? Maybe it was intentional, though. A subtle little nod to those themes of blurred realities the film's playing with. A little Easter egg for the attentive viewer.
See, you always have such an interesting perspective on these things. Intentional or not, it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. All right, so we've covered a lot here. Visually stunning, stellar cast, a first-time director making a bold statement, but also a potentially messy plot that might leave some viewers scratching their heads. So the big question remains, is Blink Twice worth carving out a couple of hours for? So after all that, should we be hitting that add to watch list button? What's the final verdict?
Okay, I'll give it to you straight. If you're the kind of person who loves those visually rich movies, like every frame is practically a work of art and the dialogue just crackles, yeah, Blink Twice is right up your alley, especially if you're curious to see what Zoë Kravitz can do as a director. It's definitely a strong debut.
That makes sense. It tracks with everything we've talked about so far. But there's always a but, right? Like, it sounds like it's gorgeous to look at, the cast is incredible, but what's the catch?
I mean, Blink Twice definitely seems to prioritize style over substance. If you're looking for like a really tightly plotted, mind-blowing thriller, this one might leave you a little unsatisfied. It's not exactly reinventing the genre or anything.
So go in with the right expectations, basically.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's more about the experience than like having your mind blown by some crazy twist ending.
You got it. Think of it this way. Blink Twice is like that trendy new restaurant that everyone's dying to get into. The atmosphere is amazing, the service is top-notch, and the food, while maybe not the most groundbreaking, is still pretty delicious.
Okay, I can totally see that. It's an event, not just dinner.
Exactly. And you'll be talking about it with your friends later, right? Debating the ending, maybe trying to recreate those cocktails they were sipping on.
100%. And hey, who knows? Maybe that whole snake venom thing was intentional. A secret message from Kravitz hidden in plain sight.
Now that would be something.
Right. A girl can dream. But in all seriousness, you've given us a lot to think about. Now it's your turn, listeners. What do you think? Is Blink Twice going on your watch list? Hit us up on social media. Let us know your take. And until next time, happy watching.